Hello and welcome to the Suburban Sloth show. Today we're looking at something very old school in nature. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while now, you know I love classic 80s/90s video games. And I've always found it a bit difficult setting up the old consoles with modern TVs. But I found a product out there which I think has an answer to my solutions. It's called the Retron 5. And for anyone that doesn't know, the Retron 5 is a combination of some classic Sega/Nintendo consoles. Because you see, they're so old that other companies, third-party companies, are allowed to emulate the systems into one ultimate system. So yeah, let's unbox it and see what it's all about. Okay, let's see what we got here. There you go. Here it is. So what have we got here then? We've got a controller which looks like an original controller that the company Hyperkin have made themselves. Yeah, first reaction, very cheap, not great, but I'm not really bearing that much in mind because I won't be using that controller. Okay, what else we got here? We got cables, standard micro USB, HDMI. See, this is the main thing that will connect it to modern TVs. A proper HDMI cable input. Okay. Oh, standard UK plug. Options of American, European. Okay. Let's see this bad boy. First reaction, it's very long, elongated. Let's see, oh wow. I'm pretty sure there's two different colour models, and I went for the black and purple. As you can see, look, it's got all the different carts and it's all easily labelled. So you've got the Genesis, otherwise known as the Mega Drive in UK and Japan, so the real name. You've got the SNES, the Super Nintendo, right there. You also have the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and a separate slot for the Famicom, which is the original Nintendo system that was only released in Japan and translated to the NES in European and American markets. And now, this is a really cool thing. It's got a Game Boy Advance slot, which plays Game Boy games as well, hopefully. And I've always wanted to play the original Pokemon and the remakes on the Game Boy Advance on the big screen, because they're just such great games, you can't contain them in such a small console. So let's see what ports we got. We got a Genesis port here, which I'm pretty sure is mirrored on the other side. Two NES ports and two SNES ports. So you can plug the original controllers in and play the games in their original glory, the way they're meant to be played. In the back we've got a SD card slot. We've got an HDMI slot, a micro USB slot and a power slot. Wow, it's very simple, but I like it. Now that we've done the difficult task of unboxing it, I'm going to go through each system and see how the emulation holds up. My main purchase of this, as opposed to its rivals, was the fact that it apparently can play in the original 4:3 format that it's meant to be played in, as opposed to the 16:9 where it's stretched and skews the image. Well, there you have it. There's my unboxing of the Retron 5. It's time to do the fun part and play some old school classic games on it and see how the emulation holds up.
Upon booting up the Retron 5, you're welcomed by the Hyperkin company logo and a slick, polished set of menus. The menus include the option to change the aspect ratio, add sound enhancement, and even overlay scan lines to get the retro vibe. Of course, I had to have them on. To put the Retron 5 to the test, the first game I tried was Sonic the Hedgehog on the Master System, played through a Mega Drive to Master System converter, because I like being difficult. And to my surprise, it worked. Sure, it took some taking it out and putting it back in again to make it work. That came out a lot filthier than I meant it to. As far as I could tell, the emulation was fine, and the game was still its poorer cousin to its Mega Drive counterpart. Moving on to its Mega Drive counterpart, I tried a Japanese copy to see if it handled games from different regions, and again the Retron 5 worked perfectly. Now to be even more weird, but try my favourite game, Sonic & Knuckles, with Sonic 2 plugged into the top, where you can control Knuckles in Sonic 2. Again, it worked just fine. Moving on to the Nintendo side of things, I thought I'd try one of the console's all-time classics and my favourite Capcom game, DuckTales. The emulation was perfect, and I have to say the wireless controller wasn't that bad either. Just a tiny bit of latency. The music is still so good all these years later. Moving on to the SNES, definitely one of the best consoles of all time. To truly test it, I put in my favourite Mario platformer, Super Mario World, which is still so great all these years later, even if I'm a little out of practice. To put the SNES emulation to the test, I decided to try out a cartridge that was a little out of the ordinary. An American copy of Star Fox, Starwing in Europe. This was the first game to include the FX chip, allowing rudimentary 3D graphics. It works just fine, it has all the same frame rate issues as I remember. Still tons of fun to play though. Moving on to the portable side of things, I booted up a copy of Fire Red in the GBA port, and it was a dream come true to play on the big screen. Sure, there has been other ways to play GBA games on the TV, but they tend to be quite rare these days and probably cost the same price as the Retron 5, without the added advantage of being able to play 4 other games consoles' libraries of games. The final slot to try out was that of the Famicom, the Japanese NES to us Westerners, the original Nintendo console. I only have 2 games for the console which I've never played before. I stupidly booted up a copy of a Dragon Ball Z strategy game. As you can see, I had some trouble understanding what was going on. However, saying that, the graphics for the time were pretty incredible. The other game I owned was Yoshi's Cookie, a NES puzzle game. I thought I'd get bored of it in a couple of minutes, but to my surprise, once I had finished playing it, an hour had passed, and it's now jumped to one of my favourite puzzle games. Having tried each of the 5 console emulations, I have to say I love this machine. That's not to say I didn't run into some problems. The cartridges had trouble being read sometimes, and I experienced the odd game crash. However, changing some of the settings in the menu easily fixed the problems. For someone who collects classic and retro games, it's perfect for playing a games library, especially for convenience, as it can take a long time setting up the original consoles, which aren't HD ready. In conclusion, I'd recommend the Retron 5 for games collectors and people with expansive games libraries. I would not recommend it for people who are wanting to dabble in retro games, as it comes with a steep price tag of £100 plus. There are cheaper alternatives on the market where the emulation isn't as good but still acceptable, like the Retro Trio for example.
Well, there you have it. There's my review of the Retron 5. Yeah, let me know what you thought about the Retron 5 in the comment below. Make sure to subscribe and maybe give me a like. And I'll see you on the next Suburban Sloth show.